Hello world, and welcome to Development Heaven. I am your host, Vincent Marinelli, and I am joined by my co-host, Glenn Cagle.
Hi.
Hey, Glenn. So just one more time, this is what Vincent sounds like, and then this is what Glenn sounds like.
Hi, guys. This is what I sound like. I'm Glenn.
Just I want to make sure people can tell the difference right off the bat, because apparently that's the hardest thing when it comes to podcasts is actually differentiating. Really? Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Well, people then we should both do a voice.
Should we be doing different voices? I can
we
do
should both be
really
doing different
good
voices.
Batman. Yeah.
You're going to do Batman?
I'm not going to do Batman.
I'll do Robin.
Okay, do Robin. And I'll be Vincent.
Which one?
The first one. So this is a podcast. I would say loosely it's a design podcast, but...
Loosely?
Yeah, I mean, we aren't designing anything so much as
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Talking about...
It's a podcast about design, but it's not necessarily a design podcast.
Yeah, and also it's just us making ding-dong jokes for the most part, I would hope.
Ding.
Dong. So what we do here, Glenn, is talk about the many hurdles that creators in the media and entertainment industry face during the development of just certain movies, TV shows, novels, or video games. Probably
just
mostly
different
video
media
games
that we like.
Yeah, but probably mostly video games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing. I've been developing games for quite some time now, so that's like my scene.
Good call, Glenn.
Vincent's the podcast guy.
You are the video game guy, more of the brains of the operation. That's your archetype.
Yeah.
What would you say my archetype is, Glenn? Besides, just a cool guy in general. Besides the cool guy archetype.
You're definitely like the cool like leader type. You're the Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
I'm like the Alvin. Yeah, okay. So I'm that, and then you'd be the Simon?
I'd be the Simon.
You'd be the
Does
Simon
that make
of the
Caleb
Chipmunks?
the Theodore?
Yeah, okay.
Or Matthew's the Theodore?
Yeah, okay.
Caleb's our editor. Matthew is our artist. He did all of our cover art and stuff.
Okay, we were going to do a thank you segment at the end, but now that you've gotten that one out of the way.
Well, we can still thank them, can't we?
No, that's all the airtime they get.
Yeah, they ain't paying for that much. Wait, they pay us to do work for us? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. All right, Glenn, we should probably give the people what they came here for. So what are we doing here today?
We thought we'd talk about some firsts, especially in the video game industry. Usually the way we format our episodes is we have a theme, sort of a central theme that Vincent and I will both ponder over the course of the week and come up with
I did.
It'd be a tough one to beat, Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
We come up with ideas on our own, and then when it comes time to record, we both present our research findings and ideas,
and just generally have a nice chat. But there is one gimmick that we always have, isn't that right, Glenn? Where one of us goes first, and who is that this week?
That's right, Vincent. We always decide that randomly, and since today we were talking about firsts, I looked into the first dice, because randomness.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out that, some people probably knew this. They were carved from, like, knuckle bones. Or not even carved sometimes. Sometimes you just toss, like, the talus bone, which is in the ankle of the hoofed animals.
Oh, okay, so it's an animal thing. I was going to say, where do they get the bones?
Yeah. But they called them like knuckle bones or knuckles or stuff like that, and you toss them, and they're kind of the way they're shaped. They have like a few different ways they can land, and rules on how you tally that up is differ. But sadly enough, I didn't have time to order any knuckle bones online, so I'm just gonna use Google's coin flip,
which is the same thing.
This is the same thing. Yeah,
I will call the head side of the knuckle bone.
Okay, it's flipping. Oh, it's heads. Vincent, you're up.
Okay, I guess I go first.
It's like a little Roman coin. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Uh-huh. All right, well, if I'm first, I'll just dive head first into this. Glenn, tell me what you know about Mario.
I don't know. He's like Italian, and he's like a plumber. He's got a brother named Luigi, but they're not the same species. Apparently, I read that if you look them up, I don't know if this is true anymore, but Mario is like Homo Nintendius or something like that, and Luigi is human.
Okay, that's horrifying. But I think they are adopted technically. So
are they really? I didn't know that.
I don't know. They were like delivered by a stork, and then Yoshi
yeah. Well,
picked him up.
That makes sense.
And it was at different. I don't know. Yoshi is technically like Yoshisaurus T. Munchakoopas is his genus and species.
Very cool.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so Mario's like an Italian plumber, right?
Yeah, no, you just about got it.
Okay.
Originally, Mario was a carpenter by the name of Jumpman in the original Donkey Kong. But he went through some serious changes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, mostly. The development of the original NES video game, Super Mario Brothers. So first to do that, I want to talk about Shigeru Miyamoto. You know him, I'm sure, but Shigeru Miyamoto, super influential video game designer, made Donkey Kong, Mario, Zelda, all the big ones, all the big boys of Nintendo. Yeah. But back when he was just like a student, like a college design major grad student, he got hired by a small-time toy company. This is like early 70s by the name of Nintendo, back when they made like little grabby arms and trading cards.
I see.
This was like well before the video game phase, but that's what they were looking into, and that's why they hired Miyamoto to work on art for video games, because that's what he had went to school for. The first video game.
So he went to school for artwork.
Yeah, it was like a design thing. He wanted to be an artist. I think he wanted to be a manga artist at first, but he apparently got into video games because he really enjoyed playing Space Invaders. So when Nintendo offered him this job of, hey, do you want to make art for video games? He was like, hey, I do like Space Invaders.
Wow.
So that's his origin story.
So that's really interesting, because I would consider it a completely different skill set to draw manga and draw pixel art. But I guess at the time there wasn't a difference.
Yeah, I mean there weren't pixel artists, right? So they would just hire.
Yeah. Sort of a hint towards mine. At one point, computer science was just a branch of mathematics. It wasn't its own thing. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like, it's similarly, there weren't pixel artists. It was just art.
Yeah, man, that's about where my head's at on this too. So the first game we worked on was just some small cowboy arcade game. He did a couple of...
Like the one in Back to the Future.
I don't remember the one in Back to the Future. Elaborate.
He's like really good at it. It's like a bit, and then in the third one, or whichever one he goes back, the second one, I guess, the one where he goes to the future.
Is that like Elijah Wood is a little kid in it or something? He's in the... Maybe,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But Michael J. Fox shoots, like plays the video game, and then the kid's like, oh, you have to touch it with your hands? That's like a kid's toy. So implying that in the future, 2015, that is, we do not touch video games with our hands.
Man, if only. Anyway,
well,
so
you're into like VR and stuff like that, so you're closer than I am.
Yeah, I guess so. So he worked on this game called Radar Scope, which did well in the East, critically at least, but people in America at least did not like it. And so it did really poorly. Nintendo was disappointed in this, so they asked Miyamoto to lead a new project using the technology from Radar Scope. They just wanted to repurpose those arcade sets. And so he used that technology to just made Donkey Kong. And that's where it comes from. There wasn't a huge inspiration besides, obviously King Kong, but he just took the basic technology and repurposed it. And it did really well. I don't know if you know this, but people really like Donkey Kong.
Yeah. I'm bad at it.
Yeah, I am
real
too.
bad. I don't think I've ever even... I don't know. What does anything happen when you get to the top?
Yeah, there's like a bunch of levels.
I've never even gotten to the top on the first level.
Huh. You should.
But then again, I'm like, I've never been like, inclined to play it, I guess.
It sounds like an excuse. You should probably brush up on
You have to
your,
go out of your way to play
the old
these
DK
days.
skills.
See what I mean?
No, use an emulator. Anyway, Donkey Kong, big hit. Nintendo was very happy with Miyamoto. They had him work on a couple of sequels. And then in 83, he made that Mario Bros. Arcade cabinet. And that's where, the classic Mario character comes from. It introduces Luigi. What does he do? You, like, have the power block, you jump underneath a turtle and then kick it.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Something like that. So that's where Mario came from originally. That's where the inspiration for the NES game came from. But the reason that the NES came around was actually the video game crash of 1983. Do you know about this?
No. Tell me.
Okay, so this is a topic that deserves way more attention than I'm going to be able to give it right now, maybe an entire episode at some point. But
Really?
In 83, yeah, the whole video game market crashed because Atari completely like flooded the market, like complete market saturation with just really low quality Atari games. And then all the Atari clones and everybody that was trying to copy that market. And at the same time, home computers were becoming popular, so people stopped needing to buy these home consoles. So
Yeah.
video games just completely crashed for a couple of years, specifically 83 to 85, until
Video games in general, or just like consoles?
home consoles.
Yeah, because
they
that's
call it
about the
video
time
game
when
crash.
like some of the first like PC games were coming around.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. With home computers, people decided that maybe this is where the money's at.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
arcade
Why
machines
Why
are-
spend all your quarters at an arcade when you can buy a floppy disk once and play the game, play Oregon Trail all day long?
Yeah, people were burnt out by the amount of Pac-Man clones that were on Atari games that all just ran real bad. Have you played those? They're not fun. They don't play like Pac-Man at all. Anyway, so Nintendo starts making the NES. They restrict this third-party development, so it's like really, it's quality control for the games. New design.
Yeah, the Nintendo seal of approval.
Yeah, exactly. And then they brought on, people that they know could make good games to make said games. So the NES became popular in North American markets, and a big part of that was thanks to Mario, because Mario had this name recognition at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, according to Shigeru Miyamoto, there was no clear vision for Mario at first. They just knew they were going to make a Mario game, put it on the NES. That's all. It followed along. The only kind of inspiration they had at first was a continuation of the theme that NES games at the time, which were just kind of generally athletic games. This was Shigeru Miyamoto said this himself, but which I think is so funny. But if you look back at it, today it's first-person shooters or it's battle royale games, right? But back then it was make motocross, but on a video game. Make volleyball, but it's a video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they had the technology from Excite Bike and Kung Fu and games like that, and they used
Kung
that
Fu,
to
yeah.
yeah, they used that to make the first Mario.
Huh. Cool.
So this one was a surprise to me. It's the reason that I chose Mario as the first game. Well, A, because of how influential Mario is to video game culture, but B, because I never even heard this before. For most of the development, Mario had his three main controls, right? He had run, jump, and shoot his gun.
Really?
Yeah, he originally was just going to have a gun.
I like
Miyamoto
that.
didn't say
He shot that one
specifically what kind. No. This was most of the development. That's what he wanted. He never said what kind of gun, but I assume it was just a normal gun because it sounds like the original idea for Mario was a lot less fantastical than what it turned into. If you look at the games that came before it, it was kind of just like almost a New York aesthetic, right? Where it's scaffolding and it's sewers,
Yeah. Well, I saw an interview. And forgive me, I forget the name of the guy who voices Mario.
Charles Martinet.
Okay, I saw an interview with him, and he said that when he went in for the interview. I don't know if he was saying that like other people were doing this, but he said when they asked for an Italian plumber, of course everyone thinks classic like Italian.
Oh, like full New Yorker.
Yeah, full New
Right.
Yorker like
Yeah.
voice, and he was like, I want to stand out, so I'm gonna go the opposite route and go high and like chipper, like
Yeah.
he's like funny red man.
Hardly making even coherent sentences.
Yeah,
The classic Mario we know and love.
right, exactly.
But so anyway, yeah, Mario had a gun.
Gritty.
Real gritty. There were apparently entire like shoot 'em up sections of the game where you would hop into a cloud and then just shoot enemies down as like a bonus points kind of thing. This turned eventually into bonus stages, if you remember that from the first Mario game.
I see, yeah.
So besides that, there are a handful of other pretty big changes to the original design that I was not aware of. The first one being Mario's sprite. So if you look at Mario's kind of tall sprite, right, that you get after you get the mushroom, it's like really big for an NES game. I think it's 16 by 32.
Yeah.
Which for characters in NES games was like pretty large.
I'm pretty sure it's like it's like several tiles, but it's like 8 tiles to put together, like 2 by 4. And
so apparently during playtesting, people were kind of upset because they wanted the camera to see further out front, and Miyamoto didn't really want to change Mario's size. But just for playtesting purposes, he made him small. He made him half the size so that you could, so it appeared that you could see further along the screen. With his intention being just still releasing the game with the 32 by 16 sprite. But then during this point, he came up with the inspiration of giving him a power up of making him large, starting out in the small, and then getting the mushroom power up and becoming big. That's where the Super Mario comes from. That's the Super and Super Mario.
Right. So was the mushroom like giving you powers? Is that anything from Japanese lore, or did he just pull that out of thin air?
Well, a lot of people compare it to Alice in Wonderland, but apparently it does come from Japanese folklore. The mushroom itself is, I have it here, it's called Amanita muscaria, which is, a psychedelic mushroom, right?
Right.
It's the inspiration for the Mario mushrooms, the Alice in Wonderland mushrooms, and then supposedly a lot of the ones in Japanese folklore, fairy tales.
So rather than Mario being based off of Alice in Wonderland, it's just that both of those are based off the same real life mushroom.
Yes. Yeah.
I see.
I was trying to do some research on it, like figure out if tripping on Amanita muscaria actually makes you feel bigger or something. I honestly couldn't find anything that said that, so I do not know where that comes from.
I don't know. I mean, there are like, what do they call it? Like the Superman drugs that make you feel like, if you've seen like the videos where people are like getting arrested and they're like, oh, I can break these cuffs and stuff like
the
that.
bath salts and all that.
Yeah. So like the Superman drugs. So it might, I don't know. Maybe it has an effect like that.
Maybe. It seemed like it just kind of was a really introspective kind of trip from what people said online. So I honestly couldn't tell you, but that's what they say it's based off of. And
so Mario's ego is just getting bigger.
Damn, bro, that's real deep.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, they look identical. If you look up Amanita muscaria, it's the big red cup with the little white speckles on it and all that. But yeah, so it was this idea, it was this during playtesting when he decided, what if you went in between small and large, that he came up with this idea of power-ups, and then you ended up getting the Fire Flower and the Star and all that. And the Fire Flower was actually what came out of Mario originally having a gun. They took that design, which he at some point decided was a little bit overpowered, just like running through the game and shooting. And then changing that to it's a power up that you get, which allows you to essentially do the same thing. That's what
for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
That's definitely a much more professional fix, in my opinion, than when I was. So I used Game Maker when I was real young, and that's how I got my start in like making video games. And I had this book that was written by the creators of Game Maker. And in the second edition, they had sort of a tutorial on how to make the game Zool, which is like a platformer akin to Mario. And they had a similar issue where in some versions of the game, Zool had a gun, and they wanted to include it in this one, but they didn't want to make it too easy. So their fix was make it like the control key or something, so it's like hard to press.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's not a good
I was
fix.
like really confused about that when I read the book, but and still am today. Like these guys obviously are capable of making good games.
Well, they make good game making programs.
No, they made games before that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. They were like, well, Zool was to Amiga what Mario was to Nintendo, but Amiga died, so therefore so did Zool.
Well, bring back
Anyway, there
Zool
you go. The
2020.
ninja from the nth dimension.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, definitely limited power ups rather than just physically restrain you. Make it like really hard to use the gun.
Well,
Yeah.
it was that power up, that made Mario more fantastical. Set it in at this point, it became the Mushroom Kingdom, right? And
Yeah,
then you
like a
get
fantasy.
yeah, all these fun characters. And speaking of the fun characters, I did a little bit of research on the enemies, like where they came from, what their inspiration was. So I couldn't find much on the Goombas, right, which are iconic, but the other main enemy in Mario is the Koopas, the Koopa Troopas, which were brought over pretty directly from that Mario Bros. Arcade game.
And they're
But-
like a sort of play on Kappa, right? Like the water demon.
Are they? I didn't see that anywhere. That's
Oh, I just assumed they were. They're turtle-ish, and they're, like that's what a Kappa looks like, and it sounds
they
like
could
it.
be. Yeah. Well, I didn't find that.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of inspirations like that I have went completely over my
Sure.
head. Feel
Yo,
free to let
Kappa
us know.
lore is weird.
Is it? They abduct kids, don't they?
Well, okay, it's like in some stories they're relatively benign, but in other stories they like drown kids.
So that's
apparently
Kappa's Kappas. If anybody wants to look it up,
correct.
They're Japanese folklore demons, essentially.
Yeah, like a water demon. They one of the most heinous things that they can do, other than drowning kids, sometimes raping women, they can pull your soul out through your anus.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Of all the places to pull it out of, that's the one I wouldn't want, I think.
Right.
If you were to ask permission.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But apparently, even today, there are signs in Japan around like swampy, like dangerous, like areas. There'll be like a sign that says like that has a picture of a Kappa on it, and it's like a warning not to go there. Like obviously, they're not trying to tell people that there are Kappas living there. It's just like, hey, this water is dangerous. Like there's rebar in the bottom or something like that.
Well, if there were Kappas, you got me convinced. I like my soul where it is, to be honest.
Yeah.
So anyway, Koopa Troopas. Like I said, from the Mario arcade. But as I mentioned earlier, the mechanics of the Mario Bros. Arcade game Koopas are a lot different than the ones in the original Mario game, where in Super Mario Bros., right, you jump on it, it goes into a shell, then you can kick the shell. Whereas in the arcade game, you hit it from underneath and then hit it from up top, which that was the mechanic.
Sounds a lot harder.
Yeah, but you've played that arcade game, right? Haven't you?
Maybe like once.
Okay. Yeah, you hit from underneath first, right? You jump, you do that classic Mario head bash into the bottom of the platform where the Koopa is standing, and then later it's
I see.
crabs
Okay.
and bees, and then it flips over onto its back, right? So you're essentially hitting it from the weak
underbelly
weak
both
point,
times.
yeah, and that's where the design came from, right? Where the shell is a protected part, but then you hit it from underneath where it's weak. And that's where that mechanic started. But apparently, after the game had come out, Miyamoto spent a lot of time thinking about, why would you get hurt jumping on the back of a turtle, even if it's protected? It would still end up on the worst side of that interaction, because it's not, it's still just a turtle. And so he apparently made a vow
that he was breaking his immersion. He had to,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's how video game people are. He said that he were to ever make another video game with the Koopas in it, he would make it so that jumping on them was effective, because he just couldn't stop thinking about jumping on turtles.
I mean, I'm sure he did some like serious research and development on this. Like he got together a team and like rounded up about 100 turtles or so.
Right. That's scientific.
Just, ran some tests, collected data.
Collected data. Yeah. That's how video games are made, right? It's the 80s. Nobody knows.
Totally.
Yeah. The other enemy I want to talk about real fast was Bowser, right? The original, the big bad.
Bowser. Where does his
and
name come from? Is it just a fun thing to say?
it could just be a fun thing. I didn't find. I didn't do.
Wow, I'm sorry. I'm really like.
No. I should have done my due diligence. I didn't look up where their name inspirations came from. Apparently, did you know this? Mario. The name Mario was the Nintendo of America's. The name of Nintendo of America headquarters. Their landlord was named Mario, and that's where that came from.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they were during the Mario Bros. Arcade game. They couldn't think of the main character's name, and then their landlord was like, "Hey, you guys got to pay rent." And he said it like that because he's from New York.
He's an Italian plumber.
He said, "Hey, you got to pay rent," and they said, "Okay, but also we'll name our video game character after you." So good on that guy.
Wow. Okay, so I'm satisfied. We don't know where Bowser came from, but I did not know that about the Red Man himself.
The good red brother Mario was named after some grumpy landlord. Yep.
I like that we just assume because he's a landlord, therefore he must be grumpy.
Well, he's a capitalist, Glenn.
All capitalists are grumpy.
I agree. You said it, not me. So Bowser, right? When he was first drawn by Miyamoto, like in a sketch, he intended him to be an ox. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Bowser was an ox?
Yeah, he was just some oxen fellow.
Really?
Yeah, but the artist for the game, his name is Yoichi Katabe, just didn't understand what the drawing was and drew him as a turtle, which honestly could be because he had already designed the Koopa Troopas, right? So maybe the turtles were just on the mind. But they had a little meeting about his design, and Miyamoto ended up liking the turtle more, so that's what they went with. That's where Bowser came from, just an honest little mistake. And I really like the way Bowser looks, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Oh, and it makes sense for him to be like the king of the turtles if the other Koopas are,
yeah,
turtles.
Why would an ox be the king of? Yeah, same page, same hat. I have one other fun fact for you. Like I said, the development of the original Super Mario Brothers for the NES, it was a little bit muddled, right? Where it was kind of loose structure. They didn't have a lot of inspiration going in. They kind of just made the game they wanted to make. Apparently, there was only one thing about Mario set in stone. So, for example, so when they were making the Donkey Kong arcade, right, they made the design of Mario. They didn't have much of an inspiration, but they gave him a hat because it's easier to draw in pixel art than hair is. They gave him a mustache because it would be hard to differentiate the nose. And then they gave him like overalls because then you could see the movement of the arms, right? Otherwise, it would get lost on the color of the body.
So very
you could see
practical.
what that actually looks like. Yeah, they used it for practical reasons. So that being said, there was only one thing about Mario set in stone, and that was his age. Do you know what? Do you know how old Mario is? How old Shigeru Miyamoto himself says Mario is?
Tell me, how old is Mario?
No, you got to give me at least one guess.
34.
He is 24 to 25 years old.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Really?
I don't know if that's entirely unexpected. What did you think?
I don't know. Older than that, man. He's got a mustache.
You have a mustache.
No, but not like Mario.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, I didn't picture... And I think for a lot of people, you don't assume...
That is pretty young. I know that I think about it.
You said 34.
After all, I said 10 years older than that.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming up on that age, and I'm nowhere close to being
as successful as Mario.
Damn, dude.
Oh, no.
You hurt me.
We're in the same boat, brother. We're doing this thing together.
Oh, man. Yes. So that's Mario. That's the king of video games himself. Super Mario,
king of all video
the brother.
Games.
Yeah, I think
there are no other video games than Nintendo.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad we're in agreement. All right, so what's next?
Let's see. I've got some stuff about some early video games. We're talking about firsts.
Mm-hmm.
When I went deep dive. I went to the first video game.
Yeah, that's probably more thematically correct than mine was.
Yours was I don't know. I think Mario's like the first like iconic video game. Like
okay.
Like he
Thank
was the
you.
first character that people could recognize.
Thank you. You've supported me.
I'll validate you any day, Vincent.
I appreciate it.
All right, let's look at this. So, like I hinted to earlier in the show, when computers first started out, they were sort of this. It was just like a branch of mathematics. It was like computer science because the word computer, when it was first used, centuries ago, was it was just a job. A computer is a person who computes numbers all day long and fills in tables and stuff like that.
Is that true? Wow.
Yeah. A computer is a job title.
Huh.
So
For nerds.
Eventually, to make
For
their
nerds,
lives easier.
did you hear me? I said it was for nerds.
Oh, I heard
the
you.
job.
Eventually, to make their lives easier, people, rather than discontinuing the practice of swirlies, they invented machines.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. That
You
kind of
can't.
fell
I mean,
flat.
you can't swirly a computer the size of a building, right?
Yeah, nailed it. They
Oh man. Okay.
They started inventing these things called computing machines that would make the life and career of computers easier. Also, eventually automatic computing machines, which eventually just became known as computers because automatic computing machine is a mouthful. And
and at that
more
point,
we use these machines, the less we needed the people to run them.
It beat out the people. Damn machines taking our jobs.
Yep. That they do. So let's see. A lot of people think that the first ever video game was Pong. A lot of people like to cite that one. And that's a good guess.
Oh my god. Close, but not quite. You lunatic.
There are examples of games run on computing machines as early as the 1950s. I mean, as soon as there were machines that could compute numbers, people figured out ways to play games on them.
Yeah, why not? That's human nature.
Yeah. Pong, by the way, was originally released in 1972. So
it's much later than the 50s. Hey, what does Pong stand for again?
I don't think it stands for anything, does it? It's just the second syllable of ping pong. Right?
Hold on. If I
Are you
hope I don't sound
gaslighting
like
me
an
here?
idiot. No, I.
Okay.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Vince.
Personal, organizational, national, and global. I don't know if you knew this, but
that's
it
a
was...
backronym.
No. It was originally like I'm not gonna lie. It actually makes way more sense as a second thing of ping pong. But I've heard before that Pong was originally like a government test that they used in the military or something like that to test attentiveness or something dumb like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe that I would believe. I don't see that on here, but anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. And anyway, I would say that that is probably a backronym. They probably were like, hey, let's call the game ping pong after the game ping pong, and then we'll come up with something that can stand for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
I went in half-cocked. I don't have a dog in this fight, Glenn.
That's okay. You knew about Mario being a landlord, so...
I did know about Mario, that's true. Ask me anything.
So in the 1960s at MIT, they already had games such as 3D Tic-Tac-Toe and Moon Landing being played on these computing machines.
And you don't like Moon Landing, right?
Can
you get into this?
I get such a headache playing Moon Landing. It's just... it's so much. It's too much, Vincent.
I love Moon Landing.
Moon Landing, yeah.
Big fan.
I'm okay with 3D Tic-Tac-Toe, though. I can get into some of that.
I don't think I've
Pong
ever
is
played
classified in the sports genre, so that's fun.
That is fun. When you
okay.
said 3D Tic-Tac-Toe, I imagine just regular Tic-Tac-Toe, but with like bowling alley screen animations. That's the best I got. I really can't imagine what a 3D tic-tac-toe even looks like. Anyway, tell me more about...
It's not really that complicated. It's just like 3 tic-tac-toe boards, and you imagine that they're stacked on top of each other. So not only can you win horizontally or vertically, but you can also win like in the like
in the third dimension.
Yeah, so like out.
Z-axis. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, dude.
The main game here I'm going to talk about is called Spacewar! !
I love a game with an exclamation point in the title.
I'll hit you with some fun facts at the beginning. It was invented in 1962 by Steve Russell at MIT. So obviously
fun.
there are games that predate this, but this is like a very prominent one, and now I'll explain why as we go. He was collaborating with Martin Greats and Wayne Wittanen. And let's see,
Hey Glenn, I'm waiting for these facts to get fun.
Oof.
These just sound like facts.
Bruh. Here's a fun fact for you.
Okay.
All of those men that I mentioned, along with the other people that worked on it, were all members of the what is it? Model Railroad Club at MIT.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they were just meeting up, and they were like, "Hey, what if we programmed the DEC PDP-1 computer to play a game?"
It's like a think tank there.
Yeah.
You ever been to the MIT, what'd you say, train committee or whatever?
Model Train Club. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's pretty fun. And here's the reason that I wanted to bring this game forward. It was the first game ever known to be installed on multiple computers.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So before that, like the 3D tic-tac-toe and stuff was like little programming exercises that they did on one computer, and it was just like on that computer. And the next time you need to do a different program on that computer, you just wipe it. You know, it's like you know, like when you write programs on your calculator. I don't know if you've ever done that, but
I've tried. I'm not
like the
good at it.
TI 30 something. You can always like So it's like that. That's what the 3D tic-tac-toe and other ones were like.
Okay.
Spacewar is the earliest game that we know was installed on multiple computers. So they saved it to this might have predated floppy disk. I'm not entirely sure. Either floppy disks or punch cards or something, and moved it from one computer to another. Anyway, so that's fun. The gameplay was involved 2 spaceships. One was the Needle and the other was the Wedge. So obviously they had no concept of balance at this point because the Wedge is much bigger than the Needle. It has a much bigger hitbox, and therefore it's not fair. They don't compensate with like speed or anything like that.
Don't worry,
No
they'll fix it in the
concept
next
of balance.
patch. I'm sure.
Huh?
They'll fix it in the next patch. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we're waiting.
What's the game called again? Wait, what's the game called again?
Spacewar! !
Space War fandom is dying.
No.
Retweet if you're a real Space War fan.
Hashtag save Spacewar! !
Save Space War! ! Please.
So really interestingly, the game focuses on the gravity well of a star. So in the center of the screen, there's this little blinking star. And the game uses Newtonian physics engine to determine how the Needle and the Wedge move. So this is probably the first game that ever had a physics engine. Yeah. The Needle and the Wedge are like not to get too technical, but like their position is a function of time and the inputs of the players and the gravity from the star. So the computer would just do some math, which is what it was good at, and then update the positions, which is essentially what we do today, but a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
More
graphics probably.
Yeah, I didn't have a graphics engine. In fact, this game was played on the screen of I forget what it's called, but it's a basically imagine a film of phosphorescent material.
Okay, I'm imagining.
And then you shine a laser at that, and it will glow for a second. That's what phosphorescent means.
Okay, what kind of laser?
You move the laser around, and it draws an image. And as long as the laser gets back to the original point before, let's say that it glows for 1 second. As long as the laser gets back to the original point before 1 second has elapsed, then you'll see a cohesive image.
Right. So like playing with a laser pointer.
Yeah, basically, like pretty much. It's just a little mirror that moves around and shines the laser pointer at different points on the screen and draws an image. So this was long before people had thought of breaking the screen up into tiny LEDs or anything like that. I mean, or LCD display or anything like that. None of that was around. The only way we had to get information out of a computer other than a typewriter, and yes, computers did have typewriters coming out of them at one point.
Yep.
Was to shine a laser at a phosphorescent material and make it glow, which is really interesting to think about because it means that they didn't, when doing the art, rather than doing pixel art, they had to do math and define the positions of each of the vertices of the triangles and shit, and then just have the laser follow the path.
Absolutely
Traveling salesman
soulless.
problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. That's some technical stuff. More gameplay. Each of the players had had a limited amount of fuel and torpedoes. You basically had 4 buttons. 2 of them would rotate your ship left and right. One of them would burn fuel, and you would or counterclockwise and clockwise, I should say, rather than left and right. And then you had another button that would burn a fuel and cause and apply a force to your ship in the direction you were facing. And the other button would fire a torpedo. If you ran out of fuel, you explode. If you get hit by a torpedo, you explode. If you run into the star, you explode. If you go off the edge of the screen, you come back around to the other one. So that's kind of fun.
Okay, Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Could you
but you mean, I guess we would say that Pac-Man has Spacewar rules.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow, you really just pulled that one on me. All right, could you win in this game? Was there a win condition?
It was PvP.
It was okay.
Yeah, so you're just trying to blow up the other person's ship.
Longest?
Huh?
It was just survive the longest?
Well, it was, you're trying to blow them up. You're shooting at them.
Okay. All right, I'm going to be honest. When you said gravity well, I imagined escaping from like a black hole like they did in Solo, A Star Wars Story.
Huh.
Is where I went to first. Is that not true?
That's pretty
Was
close.
there no
if you
Solo, A Star Wars Story kind of action? Because otherwise I'm going to be really bored for the rest of your segment.
Wow, okay. First episode. Actually, using but think less Star Wars Story and think more NASA. You're using using a gravity assist was a pretty common maneuver where you accelerate towards the star and then use its gravity to swing you around and get a speed boost in another direction.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. You can tell that this game was made by mathematicians and not by people who play video games.
I went to space camp when I was little. Did you ever go to space camp?
I don't think so.
I think I did it for a Cub Scout thing.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, anyway, I guess that was me trying to say I know the space stuff you're talking about because practically an astronaut. I went to space camp.
Went to space camp.
That was back when NASA was a thing, isn't it?
NASA's still a thing.
But did they do space camp?
I don't know.
Okay.
One mechanic that I found really interesting is that you could perform a hyperspace jump at any time. Basically, what that meant is you press a button, and your ship jumps to a random point on the map.
just
this
on
could
the
be
map?
in the star. This could be on the other ship and destroying you both. This could be anywhere.
That's a pretty fun mechanic.
Yeah. This was meant to be like if you're about to you're at the center of this the screen, about to get sucked into the star and die. You just press that key and you get out of there. And they say that every time you use that, there's a chance that you would just destroy your ship instead of getting jumped. Yeah. And every time you did that, that chance would increase. So you couldn't just spam it. So yeah, there you go. So I'll take it back. They did have some semblance of
some
balancing.
game balance.
Some game balancing. But I mean, different size hitboxes, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, they probably didn't have colors back then to differentiate.
That's true. It was all like green. Like most phosphorescent materials glow like a green color.
Like Game Boy.
Yeah. That's just a green black backlight though.
Yeah.
Think about what is that? I don't know. Yeah, that is kind of weird that like terminal like early computers or early operating systems that didn't have UIs that were just like command line. Those we think of those as being black and green as well. I don't know why that is. I guess just to kind of match with the way that early phosphorescent screens were. Yeah, that's probably boring you all to death.
I mean, it's interesting color theory, though. I don't know.
Another interesting thing is that this game was originally controlled using switches that were built into the PDP-1, which was the computer that it was programmed on. So you can imagine like trying to flip switches on this computing machine, not a game console.
Size of a building.
Yeah, I don't know how big it was. Probably not far off. Until eventually Bob Saunders built a gamepad that made it less awkward.
Okay.
So
would that be
good
the
on
first
him.
gamepad?
You know, electronic engineer, some I don't know.
You think that'd be the first gamepad?
I would have to say it'd probably be the first gamepad.
Cool.
Yeah.
Bob Saunders, good on you.
Let's see. It's got a lot of people attribute this as the inspiration for Galaxy Game, which was released in 1971. Computer Space, also 1971, and Asteroids. May have heard of that one, 1979.
I have heard of Asteroids.
Asteroids is another good example. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know about the other two, but Asteroids is another good example of a game that doesn't use pixel art. It uses vectors or just like a sort of traces out a line. Which interestingly enough means that it has super duper high resolution. Like if you zoomed into that line, you would still just be a line. Whereas if you were playing Asteroids on your computer monitor and you zoomed into it, you would eventually see the pixels rather than a line.
I didn't really think about it, but I mean that game does look way better than a lot of the pixel
on an
art.
original console, but not on your. If it's on your computer, then that's different. Anyway, let's talk about Steve Russell, the guy that made it.
Okay, tell me about Steve Russell. He sounds interesting.
He invented Spacewar with the help from the members of the Tech Model Railroad Club. He actually mentored Paul Allen and this other guy. You may have heard of him, William Gates. Mr. Bill Gates himself. Yeah, he mentored him
It was a good
in
misdirect.
1968 on some early computer stuff. Yeah, so there you go. He's also responsible for contributions to early interpreters and compilers, particularly universal low-level evaluation, which is the reason that we have programming languages today, rather than just writing in machine code directly. So
This guy was pretty big, huh?
Apparently so.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, I think he's like 80.
Nice. Good on you.
He looks like the kind of guy that would have been in a model train club.
Wow. Wow, dude. All right.
No,
well, now I got to look him up. What's his name?
Steve Russell. Anyway, the PDP-1 was made by the Digital Equipment Corporation. And get this, Vincent.
Uh-huh.
The PDP-1, the computer that this was programmed on, is famous for inciting hacker culture.
Like the Matrix.
Yeah, just like the Matrix.
Nice.
Hacker culture is defined as a culture of pranks, playfulness, and novel and clever outcomes. It's not necessarily about programming. It's just like when you do something and it's like more for fun than for work, and you use components to do something that they weren't necessarily originally intended to do.
Okay, that's not how I pictured hacker culture.
That's what hacking means. Yeah, the classic "I'm in" is a very specific sect of hacking where you're using software for something that it wasn't originally intended to break into somebody's data maliciously. But in the general sense, hacker culture is a lot more different. Think about like life hacks. That's hacker culture. or like, like hacking something is like using something to accomplish something that it wasn't originally intended for. And the PDP-1 is famous for inciting that kind of culture in the early computer programmers.
Well, all right. I mean, if you're smart enough to do it, yeah, why not?
Yeah. Some of the first ever text editing software was made on it. They called it expensive typewriter, because it didn't do much more than a typewriter.
Sure.
The first ever word processor, which means that it could do a little bit more like formatting, whereas text editing is just like what it says, an expensive typewriter. Yeah. The first ever word processor, TJ2, was also on this computer. It originally had a typewriter as its primary output, but it was a general purpose computer, so you could really hook up any kind of inputs and outputs, peripherals, if you will, to have the desired effect. Obviously, we talked about how they switched the input to a gamepad, a custom designed gamepad.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit of that hacker culture, just making your own a custom part to put into an existing machine.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So it's got a Type 30 precision CRT display. I have no idea what that means, but that's kind of what I was talking about before. But you felt like you had to include it. The laser. And it could also play music. It had audio output. So there you go. I don't know if it was the first computer to have audio output, but it could play up to 4-part harmony, which is really cool, actually.
I mean, that's practically a soundtrack right there.
Honestly. Some early consoles, like the NES, I don't even know. I think that had like 2-part harmony or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. And to this day, there are 3 of these magnificent machines in the entire world.
Oh, and they're still around, kicking it?
Well, they're in like museums.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So I couldn't play it in my free time?
Oh, no, yeah. One of them that's I don't know where it is. Probably like Oxford or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's at least one of them I know for sure is still it does 3 things in at different times of the day when you go there at the museum, and one of them is like it plays a song, then another one's like kids can come up and play Spacewar on it, and then another one is something else. So yeah, Spacewar is pretty influential. Speaking of influentiality of Spacewar, let's look at let's talk about like what people thought about it. So
the critical reception.
Critical reception, exactly. We can't really talk about it at the time because, like I said, these were just hacker computer geeks, little people who were really into like math, really, and just wanted to have fun.
Right.
So obviously they liked it, but much later in 2007. The Library of Congress put together this thing called the video game canon, which is considered to be like the top. They said these are the top 10 most influential games of all time in 2007.
Okay.
The canon, when it was released, came with much criticism. Here, I'll give you Jonathan McCalmont. Okay. A UK scholar is quoted saying, "A canon is to lift some games out of the mire, pressing others down, while to leave our collective memory to the forces of technological obsolescence is to shorten the memory." Basically, he's saying that
he hates the list. He's saying he hates the list.
He's saying that he hates the list, but if we didn't have a list, then we'd have to remember what games were good, and and some games would just become obsolete because we would forget about them. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of conflicted on it. Many other people, like I said, it came with much criticism because A, it's 10 games. B, it's I can think of some games that I think would belong on here that. By 2007, there's a pretty wide list of games that should be on here, and some of these I don't think belong on here at all. So let's just go through them, shall we? Number 1, Spacewar, first ever video game, 1962 by Steve Russell.
Okay.
Number 2, Star Raiders. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
Neither have I.
Oh, boy.
1979 for the Atari. It was renowned for complex graphics. It had a first-person perspective, so that's pretty cool. First game with a first-person perspective. Zork is on there. Have you heard of Zork?
No.
I'm a big fan of Zork. It was released in 1977 for the Infocom and 1980 commercially. It was a text-based game, so one of those where you type in, what you want to do, and it gives you a response.
Oh, yeah, okay.
D&D with a computer DM.
Yep.
And only one player. But it was way more story-rich than other similar games of the time. The lore was a lot deeper, and it had a much more complex text parser, which people said that it was... The creators are... they said that they wanted to make it have like sort of a sense of humor, so it would talk to you. It was one of the first attempts at like just how humans talk. You're getting computers to emulate that.
Yeah, sounds like something a programmer would say.
Okay. It was the first Siri. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, that's
but
not bad.
you had to type into it. You can speak.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It had a complex text parser, and it wasn't just like open drawer. It was like, hey, I want to open the drawer.
And it was called Zork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. Tetris, best-selling game of all time. Not hard to understand why that one's on there.
It's a good one.
Made by Elorg, a guy working at... the guy's name is not Elorg.
Okay.
The guy's name is Alexei Pajitnov. He worked for... I wrote down the name of the company. Elektronorgtechnika.
Okay.
Often shortened to Elorg. Elektronorgtechnika.
Okay, very good.
Usually shortened to Elorg. He made it in 1984. The name comes from the Greek for tetra, for four, and tennis, his favorite sport. Alexei Pajitnov's favorite sport. He just made a combination of those, so Tetris.
That's cool. I don't get a lot of tennis vibes from Tetris.
I don't know. I stopped asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the best-selling game of all time until it was overtaken by Minecraft in 2019. I see no reason why that one and Zork shouldn't be on there, because they were kind of big for their time. Mm-hmm. Star Raiders, I guess first person's kind of cool. Let's see, SimCity is also on there. The original one in 1989, made by Maxis. It was one of the first ever real life simulation games. Before that, games were either fantastical or mostly sci-fi.
Yeah.
They were either sci-fi or
I definitely
high
think
fantasy.
that fits. Yeah.
Come again?
I definitely think that fits.
Mm-hmm. And it was like a management game. You hadn't seen a lot of those yet. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
Management games.
Super Mario Bros. 3 is on there.
All right. It's a good one.
By Nintendo, 1988. Released in Japan in 1988 and released in North America in 1990. Mm-hmm. I don't really know why it's on there, other than just being an all-around good game. It's the first game that introduced the Tanuki Mario, so probably responsible for the furry culture in America. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, no, I'd say so.
Yeah. But good on you, Mario.
And Kirby's responsible for Vor. We can agree on that one?
That's 100%.
Okay, cool.
Moving on, Civilization 1 and 2
please.
are listed as one entry on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Microprose in 1991. It's one of the first ever 4X games. That is explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. So
a lot to unpack there.
I don't know if that one... people swear by Civ, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that it shouldn't be on there is kind of risky, but also, it's like I've never played the first one or the second one, or any of them. So I don't know. Doom is also on there by ID Software in 1993.
I can see that.
It was the pioneer of the FPS genre with 3D graphics and network multiplayer.
Yeah, man, Doom is cool.
He probably singularly responsible for the reason we have so many different shooter games today.
Actually, the reason that Doom looks 3D, all those sprites of the enemies and all that, they were clay models first that were taking pictures at different angles, and that's where that 3D effect comes from.
That's awesome. I never knew that. I think, that's...
yeah, man, Doom is cool.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have the Warcraft series by Blizzard. First one came out in 1994. Now this is kind of a weird entry because it includes everything from Warcraft, the RTS, Warcraft 1 through 3. So that falls right in there with Civilization. And then, of course, it has WoW, which is MMO, massively multiplayer. And also includes Hearthstone, which is the card game based on Warcraft lore. So, kind of a weird entry to say that the entire Warcraft series, 3 very different games, or 3 very different types of games, all belong in one entry. But, I mean, I guess more power to you. This is the Library of Congress, by the way.
Yeah. It's not our list.
They can do what they want.
They can. We can't stop them.
And I don't think you'll ever guess what this 10th one is.
Super Mario Bros. 2.
No. It's The Sensible World of Soccer.
Okay.
By, get this, Sensible Software. Released in 1994. It's one of the first ever well, I won't say it's the first ever sports sim game, but it's like it is a sports sim game, and it has manager gameplay. So the first ever 2K.
Okay, I have heard of Sensible Software, actually.
Have you really?
I have, yeah, hold on.
That's hilarious. So I guess that's kind of cool. It has like multiple game like parts, like where you play the sport and you also manage your team. That's fun. I don't know. So there you go. That's what Library of Congress considers to be the top 10 most influential games of all time. For reference, Star Wars was released in 1977. So all of the ones that came before that, like Spacewar, Moon Landing, Star Raiders, all of those were kind of pioneering the sci-fi landscape. Leading up to the release of Star Wars, which eventually became known as A New Hope.
Right. Which, of course, was originally called Spacewar! !
Oh, here, I missed this. Earlier when we were talking about Super Mario Bros. 3, and we were trying to think of like what in particular made it earned it a spot on this list. I had a world map, so that's something we didn't see in earlier Mario games.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So you could select your levels, go back to previous levels, etc. It also included the Koopalings. First game to include that, along
characters
with Tanuki Mario.
Yeah. I bet I could name them all.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah. How many are there? Do you know?
I don't know. No idea.
Okay, then no, I totally can't name them all.
How many can you get?
Let's see. There's Wendy. There's Iggy. There's Morton. There's Ludwig. There's Lemmy.
Wow. Okay.
That's 5.
So what's the story with the Koopalings? What are they? Are they just like...
I think they're Bowser's kids.
Are they seriously?
I mean, they're either
Who's
kids
Roy?
or like... You're right, Roy's in there too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Roy's number 6.
I thought Roy was like his only son. Or what about
No, you're talking about Bowser Jr.
Koopaling?
Bowser Jr. isn't one of the Koopalings.
So he came later.
He showed up
Is he
in
like
Sunshine.
He's like a half-brother to the other ones?
I don't know. He calls Peach his mom, I think.
Really?
Yeah, but
so
that might not be true. I don't know. There's a lot of Mario lore that I don't actually follow very closely.
Is that like... Do I want to know?
I don't know, man. He's a turtle and she's not a turtle, so.
Oh, but like, okay, so is Peach cheating, or was it? I mean, that's what I'm concerned with. You know, Mario definitely strikes me as the kind of guy who would get mad at the other dude if his wife cheated on him. You know what I mean?
Okay. Mario seems like the kind of guy.
Yeah.
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 So this is... Okay, well, there you go. I gave you a top 10. I don't know what else you want from me on this YouTube platform. I don't know, guys. Check out Spacewar. You can play it online. It's not that fun. But it's like,
oh man, he's not pulling any punches.
It's a hoot and a half.
I'm in it for a hoot and a half if that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, imagine like the only other thing that computers can do at this point is math. So they may as well do math and then draw a cool little picture on top of it.
All right, well, that is all I have to talk about. So I think that's the show. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so just a couple of thank yous. Thank you, Glenn, for the intro music. The song is called Bird. It's on SoundCloud. I have linked that in the description.
Also linked are Matthew Inney and Natalie Quick. Matthew did some of our various logos, and Natalie did some great work on our cover art, so thank you to them, and thank you to you for listening.